Today we'll look at factoring by grouping. To factor by grouping, you have to remember that we have to have 4 terms. We will factor out any greatest common factor for all 4 terms. We'll then separate the terms into pairs, factor out the greatest common factor for the first pair of terms, and then we'll factor out the greatest common factor for the second pair of terms. And lastly, we'll factor out the greatest common factor for our new expression. Let's take a look at an example. In this example, we have the 4 terms. When we look at the 4 terms, we have the 12x squared y minus 42x squared minus 4y plus 14. All of our numbers are even, which means that they're all divisible by 2. So we can factor out a 2 from each one of our terms. Only 2 of our terms have x squares and only 2 of our terms have a y. So neither of the variables is part of our greatest common factor. So we will divide the 12x squared y by 2. Each term is divided by 2. So dividing by 2, we have 6x squared y minus 21x squared minus 2y plus 7. The 2 that we've just factored out, we won't need again until we are finished factoring. So my arrow is reminding me that I need that 2 in my last expression. The 4 terms that I now have, I will split into pairs. The first pair, I have 6x squared y minus 21x squared. The greatest common factor for my first pair of terms is 3 for the numbers and x squared. So I'll divide each term by 3x squared. And then I'll simplify. I have 2y minus 7. My next pair of terms, I have negative 2y plus 7. I don't see a greatest common factor here. So anytime we don't see the greatest common factor, it's understood to be 1. But because the first term is negative, I'm factoring out a negative 1. I'll divide each term by the negative 1. Negative 2 divided by negative 1 will give me a positive 2y. The positive 7 divided by negative 1 will give me the minus 7. At this point, the information in both sets of parentheses have to be exactly the same. Both sets of parentheses have 2y minus 7. That means that the greatest common factor at this point is the 2y minus 7. So I'm dividing each of these terms by the 2y minus 7. Doing this, I cancel out the 2y minus 7's, and I'm left with the terms that are outside of the parentheses. So my last factor is 3x squared minus 1. But remember the 2 that we factored out at the beginning. It has to be part of our final answer. So our final answer will be 2 times 2y minus 7 times 3x squared minus 1. Remember that you can multiply the polynomials together to check your answer.